What's up, everyone? This is Redgrave here. Today I'm doing something a little different. I wanted to mess around and try some new things because, you know, that's what people like to do from time to time. I've been playing a lot of Resistance. I have really been enjoying Nicholai, and I wanted to try my hand at showing a character tutorial and my own personal build for the character. So I wanted to kind of make a video like this for a while, and I just decided to just try it and see how it goes. So if you guys enjoy this video and you would like to see more of these kinds of videos from me, whether about Resistance or any of the other games that I play, feel free to mention that in the comments down below and show me your support by giving a like, I suppose. I do also stream on Twitch. My Twitch link is going to be in the descriptions down below. I've been playing a little bit more Resistance on that as well. I've been really enjoying it. And if you guys would like to play some games with me, I'm always open to open lobbies and making private matches as well. It's something that I've wanted to do. I wish I had more people that I could personally play this game with. So if you guys would like to check that out and hopefully play some games, that would be awesome. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So I'll be showing you guys my own personal build of Nicholai, as well as tips and tricks and strategies that you can use with the character to just demolish survivors. So this is also gonna sort of go into a how to counter Nicholai video as well. I'm gonna not just show you guys how to be OP with Nicholai, but if you're watching this and you're like, hey, this character is really obnoxious and I want to learn how to deal with him, I'm gonna tell you guys what really annoys me as a Nicholai player and what I don't like to see survivors do to me. So I'm gonna swap the screen so I'm down here now so you guys can get a better view of everything that's going on. So if I were to jump right into it and go into Nicholai, I'm going to show you guys my skills, my equipment load, and my deck. I've had everything unlocked for a little bit, but I've pretty much been sticking just to the default loadout, at least up here. This one I got recently, which was automatically tracking all survivors when controlling Nemesis, but in my opinion that doesn't really do much because you can just look at the map and track the survivors that way. I do enjoy this. This shortens the cooldown when survivors are tracked or defeated, which happens a lot with Nicholai. You down and track survivors very easily with him. So I think just sticking to the default is just the best option. This one is honestly just kind of useless. There really isn't any reason to track the survivors when you're controlling Nemesis because you can just pull up a map and just track them that way. Again, I like using the default, and I'll show you why. Because on his default, survivors will become trackable when hit by firearms. Now that'll happen like whether like it's on a single firearm from the like the single shot like pistol rounds or a couple rounds of the machine gun rounds. Either way, I prefer this over automatically tracking survivors with less than 75%, just because when you actually shoot your shot, that's when the survivors become trackable, but this automatically tracks them when they're below 75% health, and it's not always going to be guaranteed that they're going to be at 75%. If they know what they're doing against Nicholai players, they're going to try to keep above 75% health as much as possible, and while also using yellow orbs, DMC player, while also using yellow herbs to decrease the amount of damage that they take. And that's one of the things that also really annoys me as a Nicholai player, and I'll get into it later, using yellow herbs. So just stick with this, and then also stick with the default firearms specialist variant as well, because decreasing the cost of firearms by 1 point is something very useful for this character, especially if you have your whole deck just loaded with firearms like I do, and I'll show you guys later. The second one, which increases the firearm ammo and duration, I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with this per se. I just personally think that once you start shooting and once you start actually like getting your equipment loadouts and you start shooting them, they're going to try to take your camera out as quickly as possible. So increasing the firearm ammo and duration of it just isn't really worth it in my opinion. And even for the auto sentry turrets, I can tell you that I have never lost a turret due to time duration. So this is the main reason why I was losing a lot of my earlier games, was because I did not have the high caliber rifle unlocked, and I also didn't have the machine gun unlocked. The reinforced leg trap is just whatever. You don't really need it, and this is also useless, automatically tracking the survivors. Just stick to the turrets. If you're not at the level for turrets, you just gotta grind it out, honestly, because these are two of the best cards for Nicholai and just the game, honestly, in my opinion. And like I said before, I rarely reach the 3rd level with Nicholai, so I rarely see this, but when I do, it is pretty effective. But this is the card that's most important, because with this card stacked with on top of the other equipment that I'll show you, you're gonna kill survivors in around 2 to 3 hits. So moving on to equipment, this is the equipment that I started with, and I have not altered it in any way. So I have a large caliber barrel, 3, 2, and 1, which slightly increases the damage dealt by firearms. The whole purpose of this particular build is to just kill survivors with firearms, and having all 3 of these in there is just gonna do that. A standard shot with, I believe the pistol shot does around like 200, 250, and when you have survivors tracked, it goes up to 350, with all of these equipped on there. And in my opinion, I think that this is the best thing to do, because the quicker that you down the survivors, the quicker the game is going to end. So for the 4th option, I have Cooling Fan 3, which greatly decreases the time it takes for a disabled camera to auto-recover. So this ability was nerfed, but it's still pretty decent, in my opinion, to just sort of have, just so you get your camera back up and running as quickly as possible. There really isn't anything else in here that I thought was particularly interesting or particularly useful, like increasing firearm duration. Like I said, you don't really need that. Increasing the magazine size you can do, but I also really think that the way that this loadout works, you're fine the way you are. But when a camera goes out, that's really what sort of screws you over. And something that I hate is that when they just target the cameras early and quickly, and it just takes forever for the camera to auto-recover. So I just have this on just for that little bit of extra, like, okay, the camera's going to recover faster than it normally would. So going here, this is the current deck that I currently use, with all of the abilities that I have unlocked. So the main changes from the abilities that you unlocked were the efficiency mod for firearms and the air cannon. So the air cannon very recently got nerfed, but I still think it's good. I don't really try to use it as often anymore, because the time duration for when you hit each survivor decreased from 5 to 3. So what it used to be before is that if you hit a survivor and you knocked them down, it was 5 seconds, or they lose 5 seconds. Now they lose 3 seconds, and that stacks up depending on how many survivors you hit. So for example, if all 4 survivors are just crowding around each other and you blasted them with an air cannon and then hit all 4 of them, pre-patch they would lose 20 seconds. Now they lose 12. So for the mods, I at first had the Red Queen mod, which in hand the EIS activation speed is doubled, which is super good. But I recently unlocked the efficiency mod for firearms, and I have been using that ever since. Now this card, I forget what level you unlock it with Nicholai, but while the card is in your hand, it lowers the cost of all firearm cards by 1. And this stacks with Nicholai's ability that already decreases the cost of firearms by 1. So every firearm card that you have will decrease by 2 when this is in your hand. And there are games where I start with this. The downside to having this card in your hand is that it costs 10 points to get rid of it. But in my opinion, you do not need to get rid of this once you get it. I have the leg hold trap because I think it's very self-explanatory. With the leg hold trap, what you can do is you can set that trap down and wait for a survivor to get on it, and then you can just mow them down with shots. I try to have these in my presets as often as I can, but having a couple that you can just sort of scatter around just to throw survivors off and just catch them, is just super good. You should have this card, even if you don't really like to use traps. This is the only trap that I think you should use with Nicholai. I don't think you should use any of the other traps. The reason why I have dogs is because they add a lot of chaos into the mix for a very cheap price. So what I like to do is I like to put them around corners, put them around pretty much right when the door opens, and they can just sort of like bark and scatter, because the survivor's attention is going to be sort of deviated between dealing with the dog who's like running around like crazy. It's a lot more difficult to manage than just a standard zombie. So they will either have to deal with that, or they will have to deal with a camera, and they have to choose between the two. And if they go for the dog, you just mow them down with shots. But if they try to go from the camera, there's a chance that the dog will grab them, so they have to make a choice. And the same thing sort of applies with the crawling zombie, but the reason why I have the crawling zombie on here and not any of the other creatures is because he is a 0, and I like to also put him around doors and around corners to sort of catch survivors. And the way that I sort of see it as a cheaper and less effective leg hold trap. So if they catch you and they grab you by the ankles and they bite you, that's another couple seconds where you can just take control of a camera, or you have a sentry camera, and then you just mow down survivors with it. So I have all of the firearms equipped, machine gun, regular rifle, air cannon, and the turret rifle. Just have all of those equipped for you. All of those are affected by Mastermind skills, like I said, and they're also going to be affected by the efficiency mod. So in game, if you have both the efficiency mod and the firearm efficiency skill activated, when you pick up these cards, the machine gun turret will go from 4 to 2. This will go from 2 to 1, this will go from 2 to 1, and this will go from 4 to 2. And having this turret go from 4 to 2, in my opinion, is very, very important, because what also happens is these are affected by it as well. So instead of 6, these are both 4, which is very, very scary. I also have the electromagnetic shield as a little bit of extra protection for the camera. What I like to do is I like to wait it out a little bit and just sort of weigh my options, because it takes a little long for survivors to kill cameras, even with like enhanced abilities. And what I like to do is I like to go to that camera, just very quickly go to the electromagnetic shield, only if I have a rifle with me. If I have a rifle with me, what I will do is I will activate that as soon as I can, and then go to the rifle, and then just start firing back. It's a very cheap card, and it helps you a lot with this build because you need your cameras. I also have a quick draw on here, only because there are times where I will need a rifle and I won't have a rifle on me, so for the cost of just 1 point, to just clean my hand and just get a specific rifle that I want, I think that's worth it. So one thing that I think is very important to realize with Nicholai is that a lot of this also has to do with how you have your stages preset, and having a good stage preset is going to really help you deal with certain situations and sort of like set up your overall game plan. And I think I'm going to show you 2 of my most favorite examples. My first one is right here in the abandoned park. So right here, if you look at my preset, you'll see that, let me zoom in a little bit. So in this corner right here, I have 2 zombies right here, and I have 2 traps. I believe those are leg hold traps. Yes, both of these are leg hold traps. So what I like to do, So what I like to do is I like to wait for survivors to actually come out through this door right here, go all the way around. I try to have any kind of rifle, preferably a turret over here. And if I don't have a turret in my hand, I'll typically just use like creature cards, like either here, or over here, because they need to go either one of 2 directions. I don't really pay attention to this area here because I'm more concerned about survivors coming into this area because I have all of these traps right here. So what I like to do is I like to wait for one to come out. If all of them come out, I try not to bother, because the thing that you want to do with Nicholai is you want to separate the survivors. And in my opinion, one of the best ways to do it is to just have all of the keys as spread out as possible. Like have every key and every panel in the second stage just spread out as far as you can. And pretty much every single game that they come into the abandoned park, they always split up and go 2 different ways. So whether it's like 2 go this way, 2 go this way, or 3 go this way and 1 goes this way, or just 1 comes out and tries to do something on their own. When they come into here, or when they try to go into here, I like to lock this door immediately to set it up, and set up any sort of rifle right here, gun them down this way while they're distracted by the zombie or the lake hole trap. They'll also typically just sort of cower out back over here to either draw the zombies out or just wait for the camera fire to just end, which is why I like having a turret over here. And basically setting down a turret as quickly as you can once a survivor is like coming up at you is just the best way to kill them as quickly as possible. So utilizing your creatures and your traps and putting them all in specific places, preferably like right at doors or in really tight areas like that, is just going to frustrate them. And that's something that, in my opinion, makes Nicholai a little more unique, at least from my experiences. I've noticed that a lot of people have been rage quitting on exclusively Nicholai, and I think that that does not help the team at all. So I think that Nicholai can be best described as a character that is meant to annoy the shit out of you and almost cause people to rage quit, because once one person quits, the game becomes 10 times harder. So instead of just playing a match and doing commentary over it, because I'm really bad at this for some reason in this game, normally I'm very good at it, just sort of like going back and forth between like commentating on what I'm doing and then actually playing the game at the same time. I can't really do that in Resistance all too well. I like to get like really focused and like zoned and in the moment. So I'm just going to provide commentary over a match that I actually just did. And this gives me a chance to go back and stop and rewind and potentially fast forward through stuff. So what I like to do during this little setup right here on my favorite map, and I'm assuming a lot of people's favorite map, downtown, is I like to ignore this first area right here and go right to the second and third room and just setting stuff up. So you'll see that I set a dog right there in the corner, and now you'll notice that I have the firearm efficiency mod right away. So, and as you can see, the rifle is already at 1 and the air cannon is already at 1. So when I grab any of the other cards that are higher, those are also going to be decreased by 2. Obviously, you can't decrease it to 0, so that's why it's like that. And if I just draw a card that I don't like, then I can just get rid of it with quick draw, like that. See? So machine guns are at 2, and then the this is very important here. The machine gun and the turret rifle are both at 2 right now. So pretty much every single card in the deck is super low cost, and as you can see, like I already have 4 points, so I can use both of these, and I also have a lake hole trap. So what I like to do in the beginning section right here is I like to wait for the survivors to actually go to the door and try to unlock it before I start firing on them, because I've noticed that once the survivors notice that the first camera is active, they'll just shoot it out immediately, and if a camera is not active, they'll just ignore it. It just doesn't matter. And this is something that I think that survivors should really take notice of. There should be at least one survivor looking at a camera, especially in downtown. There should be one person looking at that camera, and I will show you why. So I set a lake hole trap right there. I'm still at 2. So you can see that I'm constantly watching. They get the key. But now all of them, except for the January, are not looking at the camera. They're all focusing on the door right now. So I grab a machine gun that costs 2, open fire on them. And now my aiming is kind of shitty. My aiming's kind of shitty right now. But look at that. He's basically dead already. So in this instance, the January hadn't left the spawn yet, so she was still looking at the camera, but they were just about to open the door, so I had an opportunity to fire on 3 of them and potentially kill 1 of them at the cost of 1 survivor looking at the camera and shooting it. There will be cases where all 4 of them rush towards the door and don't look at the camera. I've killed survivors that way, and it's just a strategy that I think that a lot of Nicholai players should pay attention to if they aren't already, is just keeping an eye on that first door. So now here, I have a turret rifle, so I get the turret rifle, and Tyrone's going to be dead in a second. Spawn a zombie there around the corner of the door because that's just free right there. Spawn a zombie dog around there because it's free. I don't tend to, sorry. And that was another instance of me trying to kill a survivor when they were just not looking at the door, but they closed the door. But I tend not to set up a turret camera and just wait. Knocking Jill back and then closing the door. That's another very useful thing about the air cannon, is just doing that. And now there are 2 survivors locked in this door right here. Please excuse my shitty aiming. And then there was Jill trying to take out that 1 camera. So pretty much once they exit that room, it's just all about setting up as many turret cameras as you can. That was just really bad luck that the January was there. Setting up another crawler over there. And pretty much just constantly switching and just observing your area. Just setting up like little traps right there. And then just doing whatever you can to get as many points as possible. So like whether it be like closing doors, locking doors, turning off lights. So right here, I shoot him with some more of the turret bullets. So another very important thing about the air cannon is that if you're looking to close a round out and 3 out of the 4 survivors or 1 out of the 4 survivors are at the door while the timer is about to run out, if you shoot them with the air cannon and they get knocked down, the game will end because technically they will not be at the door. They will be in a knockdown state. So that is something that is very, very useful about the air cannon. So I'm trying to find more places around the corner. And this is something that I really, really like about this area in particular. And I'm going to show it right here because I'm purposely trying to use as many cards as possible. And you can see that the high caliber rifle for the turret, instead of 6, it's at 4 now. So what I like to do here is you see 11 and 12 right there, how they sort of cross that way. I like to set up a high caliber turret on one and then a regular turret on the other one, while also coming over here and shooting them down this way if I have another option, which I did. And as you can see, my aiming is just kind of garbage. But if you have another turret on this camera right here, those are pretty much 3 different avenues for just shooting in this one starting area. So the skill cost is increased. This is another very useful thing. So when you're going against Nicholai, and I know that it's hard to tell when it's hard to tell initially like what perks and loadouts you should use in the beginning, but in my opinion, for January, the skill cost increase is super useless because I have so many discounts already that it just goes back to default. In my opinion, what annoys me the most is not being able to actually rotate and turn my camera, because not only can I not rotate and turn it, but when it's on a turret, it stays in place. If you're a January player, I would consider using that more often. So right here, the turret's still sort of going. Locking the door right there. And And you can see how fast that activates too, and she just gave up. And this is another thing that survivors should take note of too. There is this like sort of particular glitch that you can do where, because you're in the third person perspective, you can sort of manipulate the door and manipulate the camera angle so that you can actually see the camera and shoot at it in certain situations when you're behind an object, whereas I can't shoot you because of the specific angle of the camera. If I could find a better example of it, I would, but in an instance like this, you can manipulate the outside portion of that door to where if you like just slightly creep in and look at the camera over the third person perspective, you can shoot it down perfectly and I will not be able to see you and do anything about it. Unless I have a like an air cannon, but I can't actually shoot you. So I have Nemesis. I'm not going to use him, and I typically don't tend to use Nemesis unless my my energy count is at like 0 or 1. I also like to set up turret cameras and as many zombies as possible. So you can see right here, I'm trying to set up as much as I can. This area is honestly really, really bad for setting up stuff. I gave up and just tried to get Nemesis, but it just didn't matter. So just setting up more stuff here. And you can see that literally after that one shot, they become trackable for a while. And you can see that, so Jill is already back up to full health after I just shot her that one time. So that's why I think that just having the tracker shot and just not having it automatically below 75, I just think is more useful. So here's more setting up stuff, just getting energy, setting up a dog. See, and January was distracted by that. And this is something that I also really enjoy, is just setting up a turret and then immediately going to a weapon that's right next to it. So I think this might be around the time where I close it out, because 3 out of the 4 survivors are dead right now. Or no, they're not dead. They're defeated, I think is what the term is. And this is another really important thing too, is that just getting a survivor alone and just cornering them and just destroying them. They're all just dying right now, and then I'm able to spawn trap him essentially. I can't remember if this kills him or not. Okay, that didn't kill him. But one other shot, that did it. Tentacle strike. Honestly, like, in my opinion, Nemesis should not have a minute. Like, he is super, super good. Another thing that I'll talk about later is taking advantage of his accelerate ability to go through doors, and not to mention stun survivors when you're close enough to them. And so if you look back up here, once I'm done with Nemesis, oh, excuse me, that was a mistake. Okay, so if you notice, once you're done with Nemesis, your bioenergy count automatically goes back up to 10 basically. So you could get rid of the firearm efficiency mod, because you can get rid of it, but don't get rid of it, please. Quick draw. Your high caliber rifle is right there with a shield. So you can just use that to set up camera 16 right there. You see that January is about to come across right there. Immediately go to 15. So this is very important to know. One shot of the high caliber rifle does 464 right there. That's just one shot, and that's without tracking. I can't remember if it shows it. Second shot, yes, 557. Now, I'm not sure if she was at full health. I don't think she was. But that was 2 shots, is what that high caliber rifle does. I didn't even need this other rifle, but this is another situation that I was talking about earlier, where I have a high caliber rifle on 16 and then a regular rifle on 15, so that if there are multiple survivors in there, they get sandwiched, or if they try to cross from from corner to corner, they're still gonna get lit up anyways. So right here I go back, And so you'll notice that, like, before I put down Nemesis, and even before I put down Nemesis, when I downed the 3 survivors and then called Nemesis, they had like 5 minutes left. And now it's down to 2, and it's still going down. So here's another instance. They're about to come over here. I think I put a shield down. Yeah, I put a shield down for insurance. High caliber turret rifle. And I immediately go to 12 to put on another turret rifle, so that they're sandwiched again. So I think one of them is going to die really quickly. Yep. Jill's already dead.
You fight too long, you lose. I get paid.
And then I believe that's Tyrone. Tyrone just died.
You can die here just as easy as next place.
So you can see in that very short time frame, they went from nearly 2 minutes, high caliber turret rifle, regular rifle, 3 seconds is gone right there. Another 3, another 3, another 3, another 3.
You fight too long,
15 because they got downed. Another 3, another 3, another 6. Another 15 because another survivor got downed. And then this entire time they're trying to save January, but they can't, so she dies. They lose 30 seconds right there.
you can die here just as easy as next place.
And now I believe this is Becca. Becca is put into a situation where she literally can't do anything, or else she's gonna die. And this happens a lot more frequently than you would think.
Why do they pay a kitten to kill you?
And they're dead right there.
Your escape failed.
So that took about 6 minutes to do. Second stage, I don't even think they killed the guard. Or if they killed the guard, they didn't get to a single station. Perfect score on this one. One of the things that I feel like they could have done a little differently was stacking up on yellow herbs to decrease the damage on the rifles, especially, and doing more to take out cameras. If you're going against a Nicholai, I recommend that you invest in not semi-automatic, but burst or fully automatic rifles, so that way I basically don't have a chance to move if you do that, and they just go down quickly. So there should be at least like one person. I would even almost say January, because she has additional damage on taking out cameras, or even Jill. Invest in burst or fully automatic rifles to just take out cameras, but not only take out cameras, but stun. Stun is very important, because if I am stunned, I can't swap a camera, I can't fire, and I can't move. And that is very important, because if I can move even a little bit, like I've shown before, you try to hit me with like a single shot, like that Jill was doing earlier, I could still move, and I slowly crept down on her, and I could still shoot her. But if it was a burst rifle, or if it was a fully automatic rifle, then I can't do anything. Okay, so I didn't actually save this on my PlayStation, so I'm actually going into my Twitch VODs to find it. But what I did in this clip that I'm showing here is I discovered that if I had a turret rifle down and you call in Nemesis and you use your accelerate ability and you stun a survivor, if you look at Jill, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but right in the like middle left corner right there, you can see that the auto turret rifle is shooting at her. That's not the high caliber, I believe. I believe that's just the standard. But this roar stunned Jill at full health and killed her in 4 to 5 shots. And that's another useful strategy that you can do. And this is why I like to have turret rifles placed in as many places as possible before I call in Nemesis, so I can do stuff like that. So not only do they have to deal with all of the traps, not only do they have to deal with potential zombies, not only do they have to deal with camera turrets that I have set up, but now they also have to deal with Nemesis. And a majority of the time when you call in a bioweapon, they're going to deal with the bioweapon and deal with nothing else. Okay, I'm going to show you guys one more clip from one of the end games that I had. Again, this is on downtown, but I'm going to show you guys something that I did This is probably one of the best things that I've done in Resistance, to be honest. So they have 3 minutes with them. I'll just play it. So this is when I was still running discount, but this is still something that I think is incredibly useful. So they forgot that there was a key back here, back in the starting area, because I placed the key back in the starting area, and they had to go back for it. So Jill went back for it by herself, and I was able to kill her because of it. And in my opinion, I think that you guys should have good communication and stick as closely together as possible. So that way, these sort of situations don't happen. So all three of them, pretty much just leave Jill in the dust. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to kill her again right here once she pops out. So while she missed both of those shots, there was another turret right here waiting for her. Lock the door.
The door is locked, and the seconds of your life tick away.
And she's down again. Now, all three of these survivors are back up here, and they're not doing anything about it. And if they do, I'm just able to just come in and light them up again. Like, they're just trying to stay alive right now, and pretty much just just stay at the door, because obviously, like, if the time runs out, they can just still progress there. But this is why I think it's really important that you guys need to, like, help each other and communicate. So I call in Nemesis right here. So January is actually dead right there too. So they have about 30 seconds left, and I'm going back to spawn kill Jill, which pretty much happens. But then it's at this moment that I realize they have like 10 seconds on the clock, and I need to get my butt over to the front door. So using Accelerate, I run from the beginning to the end, pull out the rocket launcher, down her, game ends. And Jill was like a second late. So this is why I say it's very important that you guys have good communication and teamwork as well. Even if you aren't in a lobby with your friends, put on the mic and just talk to each other, get a little bit of communication, because scenarios like this, with really bad communication, and especially if I just target maybe like 1 or 2 people, will just kill the whole game. And this is another thing about rage quitting too. If you rage quit in the middle of the game, your team's fucked. You're done. You're donezo. So that is my guide on Nicholai in Resident Evil Resistance. Again, this is the first time that I've been trying something like this out. If you liked the way that I did it, or if you didn't like the way that I did it, please let me know in the comments below what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, what I could change for next time. If you'd like to see more of these kinds of videos, whether it's from Resistance or another game, of sort of like tutorials and guides and loadouts and stuff like that, let me know. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this wasn't super lengthy. I'm gonna see how it is in the editing room, but I appreciate you guys watching this far if you are. So thank you again, and I will see you next time.